You're driving home from the range on a Sunday afternoon, gun case locked in the trunk, ammunition separate like you've always been told. Everything's legal. Everything's by the book. Then you see the lights in your mirror, broken tail light maybe, or a lane change the officer didn't like. You pull over, heart rate goes up, but you tell yourself you've done nothing wrong. The officer walks to your window, asks for license and registration. You hand them over. Then comes the question, anything in the vehicle I should know about? And right there, in that exact moment, your answer can determine whether you drive away in 5 minutes or spend the next year fighting charges you never imagined existed. Most gun owners think they understand their rights. They know the Second Amendment exists. They've heard about the Fourth Amendment in a high school civics class. But when those two rights collide on the side of the road, the confusion isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. And for a long time, courts across the country couldn't agree on what happens when you've got a legal firearm and a police officer who wants to search your car. Some courts said the gun alone was enough reason. Others said it wasn't. Drivers got caught in the middle, and the results were all over the map. If this kind of clarity matters to you, then staying connected here makes sense. This channel exists because these issues don't get simpler on their own, and waiting until you're in trouble to figure out the rules isn't a strategy. Hit subscribe now, because the people who understand these shifts early are the ones who avoid the problems entirely. The ones who wait usually learn the hard way. You're here, so you're already thinking ahead. Make it official. Here's what most people believe. If you're carrying legally, you're protected. And if a cop pulls you over, honesty is the best policy. Both of those things sound right. They feel right, but they're incomplete. Because in the real world, what you're legally allowed to do and what actually happens during a traffic stop don't always line up. Plenty of gun owners have done everything correctly and still ended up in handcuffs, their cars searched top to bottom, their firearms seized, and their day ruined. Not because they broke a law, but because the law itself wasn't clear enough to protect them. For years, this played out in courtrooms all over the country. A driver would get pulled over, maybe a speeding ticket, maybe a burned-out tag light. Officer asks the usual questions. Driver mentions a firearm, trying to be cooperative and transparent. Officer says that changes things. Officer searches the vehicle without asking permission, without getting a warrant. Finds something minor, old ammo box, forgotten pocket knife in the wrong spot. Suddenly the driver's facing charges. And when it goes to court, the driver's lawyer argues the search was illegal. But the government's lawyer says no, the presence of a gun created a safety issue, and that gave the officer all the justification needed. In some parts of the country, judges agreed with the officer. They said a firearm, even a legal one, was enough to justify a search. In other parts, judges said that made no sense, that you can't lose one constitutional right just because you exercised another. So depending on where you got pulled over, your rights were either protected or they weren't. That's not how constitutional protections are supposed to work. Rights shouldn't depend on your zip code. That inconsistency kept building until a case moved up the chain far enough to force the highest court in the country to settle it. No more confusion. No more conflicting rules from state to state. Just a clear answer. Does having a legal gun in your car automatically allow police to search without a warrant? And when the decision finally came down, every single justice agreed. All 9 of them. That almost never happens. And when it does, you know the answer was obvious once someone finally looked at it clearly. The court said no. A legal firearm, by itself, does not give police the right to search your vehicle. If it did, millions of Americans would have to choose between exercising the Second Amendment and keeping the Fourth Amendment. You'd have to pick one or the other. That's not how it works. Both rights exist, both matter, and one doesn't erase the other. Now, let's be clear about what that means in practice, because court rulings are one thing and roadside reality is another. This decision doesn't mean police can't take precautions. They can still ask you to step out of the car during a stop. That's been settled law for decades. If they have a specific articulable reason to think there's a safety threat, they can secure your firearm temporarily. But what they can't do is use the fact that you own a gun as an all-access pass to search your entire vehicle. They need probable cause of an actual crime. A legal gun isn't evidence of a crime, so it doesn't meet that standard. This is where the two-world problem shows up. In the first world, the legal world, this ruling makes perfect sense. Owning a firearm is a right. Rights don't create suspicion. Therefore, exercising a right can't justify a search. Simple, clean, constitutional. But in the second world, the real world, things get messier, because officers are human. Departments train officers in different ways. Some get updated on new rulings quickly, others don't. Some officers might not agree with the ruling, even if they're supposed to follow it, and some situations are just complicated, with multiple factors in play, and it's not always obvious where the line is. So even though the law is now settled at the top, you can still run into problems at the bottom. An officer might not know about the decision, or they might interpret it narrowly, Or they might point to some other detail and say that gave them cause, not just the gun. Maybe you were nervous. Maybe your story didn't line up perfectly. Maybe there was something else visible in the car. Once they start stacking reasons, it gets harder to say the search was purely about the firearm. That's why understanding this decision isn't enough by itself. You also have to know how to navigate the situation when it's happening. Because even if you're legally right, arguing with an officer on the side of the road is a losing strategy. You don't win by debating case law at your car window. You win by staying calm, staying respectful, and preserving your ability to challenge the search later in court if it was improper. Around this point, it's worth recognizing that if you're getting value from this breakdown, there's more coming. This channel is built around explaining these shifts in ways that actually matter when you're the one in the situation. A lot of channels cover gun laws. Not many cover the moment when those laws collide with a traffic stop on a Tuesday night. If that level of detail is useful to you, subscribing makes sense. It keeps you in the loop when the next ruling drops, or when a state changes a rule that turns a legal carry into a felony if you cross the wrong county line. Those updates don't announce themselves. You either catch them early, or you learn about them the hard way. Let's talk about what tripped people up before this ruling, because understanding the mistakes helps you avoid them going forward. A lot of gun owners thought honesty would protect them. They'd get pulled over, officer would ask about weapons, and they'd say yes, trying to do the right thing. Then the officer would use that honesty as the reason to search. It felt like a trap. Tell the truth, lose your privacy, stay silent, risk escalating things if the officer finds the gun another way. People felt stuck, and in some states they were. Other people assumed that having a carry permit was enough, and in theory it should be. But permits are complicated. Some states honor other states' permits, some don't, some have restrictions about where you can carry, even with a permit. If you're traveling and you cross a state line, the rules can flip without warning. You might be legal in one state at 9 in the morning and illegal in the next state by noon, even though nothing about your gun or your behavior changed. Then there's the vehicle issue itself. People think of their car as private space, almost like an extension of their home. And in some ways it is. But legally, cars get treated differently. There's an exception to the Fourth Amendment called the automobile exception. It says that if police have probable cause to believe there's evidence of a crime in your car, they can search it without a warrant. The reasoning is that cars are mobile. If police had to go get a warrant, you could drive away and the evidence could disappear. So courts carved out this exception. But that exception was getting stretched too far. Some courts were treating a legal gun as if it created probable cause all by itself. That didn't make sense, because probable cause means evidence of a crime, and owning a gun isn't a crime. The Supreme Court stepped in and said exactly that. The automobile exception still exists. Probable cause still matters, but a legal firearm doesn't count as probable cause, so it can't trigger the exception. Here's a comparison that might help. Imagine an officer pulls you over and smells alcohol on your breath. That smell is evidence of possible impairment, which is a crime. So the officer has probable cause to investigate further. Maybe a field sobriety test, maybe a breathalyzer. That's reasonable. Now imagine an officer pulls you over and you tell them you've got a bottle of water in the cup holder. Water is legal. Owning water is legal. The officer can't use the presence of water to search your car because water isn't evidence of a crime. A legal gun works the same way. It's not evidence of wrongdoing, so it can't be the basis for a search. But let's be realistic about the limits. This ruling protects you when the gun is the only factor. If there are other issues, the analysis changes. Let's say you're not legally allowed to own a gun. Maybe you've got a felony conviction or a restraining order. If the officer knows that and knows you've got a gun, then there's probable cause of illegal possession. The search would be justified. Or let's say the gun is visible and you're in a state where open carry is restricted. That's a violation, so again, probable cause exists. Or maybe you're acting in a way that suggests something else is going on. You're extremely nervous, your story keeps changing, there's drug paraphernalia visible in the back seat. Now the officer's got multiple factors, and the gun becomes one piece of a bigger puzzle. In that scenario, the search might be lawful because it's not based solely on the gun, it's based on the combination of things. The key is this. The ruling protects honest, law-abiding gun owners who are doing everything right. It stops police from treating legal gun ownership as automatic grounds for suspicion. But it doesn't eliminate all search authority. And it doesn't mean you can ignore other laws or behave in ways that create separate problems. So what does this mean for you practically? First, know your state's laws. Know whether you're required to inform an officer that you're carrying. Some states require it, others don't. If your state does require it, you need to do it. And you need to do it calmly and clearly. If your state doesn't require it, you've got a choice to make. and there are good arguments on both sides. Some people think volunteering the information avoids surprises. Others think mentioning it unnecessarily invites complications. Either way, if you do mention it, this ruling protects you from having that honesty used against you as grounds for a search. Second, carry your documentation. If you've got a permit, keep it with your driver's license. If there are specific rules about how the gun needs to be stored or transported in your state, follow those rules exactly. If you're traveling across state lines, research the laws in every state you'll pass through. This stuff is tedious, but it matters. Third, if an officer asks to search your vehicle and you don't want them to, you can say no. You can politely decline. You can say, "I don't consent to searches." That's your right. Now, if they have probable cause or a warrant, they can search anyway. But making it clear that you're not consenting creates a record. If the search turns out to be illegal, your lawyer can use that. Fourth, if they search despite your objection, don't resist physically. Don't argue. Don't escalate. Stay calm. Keep your hands visible and let it happen. Say out loud, clearly, "I do not consent to this search," so there's no confusion later. Then write down everything you remember as soon as you can. Officer's name, badge number, what was said, what was done. Get that information to an attorney immediately. This ruling gives you stronger legal ground if your car gets searched based only on a legal firearm. But it doesn't prevent the search from happening in the moment. It just gives you the tools to challenge it later if it was unconstitutional. That's not as satisfying as being left alone in the first place, but it's a real protection and it matters. Here's the thing that worries me most. A lot of gun owners think one big Supreme Court ruling fixes everything forever. It doesn't. Yes, this is now the law. Yes, it applies everywhere. But enforcement is uneven. Training takes time to catch up. Some officers will push boundaries, some will misunderstand the ruling, some will find creative ways to argue that other factors justified the search, even if the gun was the real reason. You can't control what an officer does. You can only control what you do. And what you should do is stay informed, stay calm, and stay within the law. This ruling is a tool in your legal toolbox. It's not a magic shield. It won't stop every problem, but it gives you a stronger position if a problem happens. It also sends a message to law enforcement agencies across the country. The message is that they need to update their training. For years, some departments taught officers that a gun in a car during a traffic stop automatically elevated the threat level and justified more invasive action. That training was based on lower court rulings that no longer stand. Now, departments have to teach officers that legal gun ownership is not inherently suspicious. That's a cultural shift, and cultural shifts take time. If you're still watching, you're clearly someone who takes this seriously. That puts you ahead of most people. But staying ahead means staying plugged in, because these issues don't freeze in place. Laws change, courts issue new rulings, states pass new restrictions or remove old ones. If you're not keeping up, you're falling behind, and falling behind in this area can cost you your freedom. Subscribing here keeps you in the loop in a way that's practical and focused on what actually matters when you're the one holding the gun and dealing with the cop. You've already invested 20 minutes in understanding this. Make sure that investment keeps paying off by staying connected. The broader point here is about how constitutional rights interact. A lot of people think of rights as separate boxes. You've got free speech over here, gun rights over there, privacy somewhere else. But in real life, those rights overlap and sometimes create tension. This case is a perfect example. You've got the Second Amendment protecting your right to own and carry a firearm. You've got the Fourth Amendment protecting you from unreasonable searches. When those two bump into each other during a traffic stop, which one wins? The Supreme Court said both. You don't have to sacrifice one to keep the other. That's a big deal, because if the decision had gone the other way, millions of gun owners would have faced an impossible choice. Carry a gun and give up your privacy, or protect your privacy and give up your gun. The fact that all 9 justices agreed tells you how wrong that choice would have been. But understanding your rights is only useful if you know how to protect them in the moment. And that means knowing what to say, what not to say, how to behave, and when to push back. It means understanding the difference between a lawful order and an unlawful search. It means staying calm even when your adrenaline is spiking. Those skills don't come from reading one article or watching one video. They come from staying engaged with this stuff over time, so when the moment happens, you're not guessing. Let's bring this home. The Supreme Court just told the entire country that your Second Amendment rights and your Fourth Amendment rights are both real, both protected, and both enforceable at the same time. That's a win. But it's a win that only matters if you understand it and use it correctly. You've got to know your state laws. You've got to carry proper documentation. You've got to stay calm and respectful during police encounters. And if something goes wrong, you've got to get to an attorney fast. This ruling doesn't eliminate risk. It reduces it. It gives you stronger legal footing. It makes it harder for police to treat legal gun ownership as automatic suspicion. But you still have to do your part. You still have to be smart, informed, and careful. Because the law might be on your side, but the side of the road isn't a courtroom, and you don't win legal arguments with a cop at your window. You win them later, in front of a judge with a lawyer who knows how to use rulings like this one to protect you. That's the reality. It's not as clean or simple as we'd like, but it's better than it was, and understanding that difference is what keeps you out of trouble. Stay safe, stay legal, and stay informed. And if this kind of breakdown is valuable to you, make sure you're subscribed, because the next ruling or law change is already on the way, and the people who see it coming are the ones who stay free.